In 1957, a 27-year-old graduate student at Princeton stood up to defend the strangest idea anyone in that building had ever heard, and within a few years it would drive him out of physics for good. His name was Hugh Everett. His advisor was John Wheeler, the same man who would later give black holes their name. And the thing Everett had written down in his thesis was so quietly insane that the founders of quantum mechanics, the giants, the men with their faces in the textbooks, did not argue with it so much as recoil from it. Because Everett had looked at the central mystery of quantum theory, the one nobody could explain, and instead of solving it the way everyone wanted, he had solved it by accepting a price nobody was willing to pay. The mystery was this: the equations of quantum mechanics describe a particle not as being in one place, but as being in all of its possible places at once, a smear of maybes, a ghost spread across every outcome it could have. And yet, every single time anyone actually looks, they find the particle in exactly one place. The smear becomes a point. The maybe becomes a fact. The orthodox physicists of the day, Bohr and his school, had papered over this with a word. They called it collapse. When you measure, they said, the wave of possibilities collapses down to a single reality, and the others simply vanish. And please do not ask how or why, because there is no how or why. That is just what the world does when it is observed. Everett refused the word. He said there is no collapse, there is no vanishing. The equations never say anything collapses, so why are we pretending they do? The smear of possibilities is real, all of it, and it stays real. And when you measure the particle and seem to find it in one place, what has actually happened is that you have joined the smear. You have split. There is now a version of you that found it here, and a version of you that found it there, and both of them are equally real, and each one is utterly convinced that they are the only one. That the world chose a single answer, when in truth the world chose every answer and simply handed each version of you a different page. Reality, Everett was saying, does not collapse. It branches. Constantly, endlessly, every quantum event splitting the world into the full set of its outcomes, and every version of you riding off into a slightly different universe, none of them aware of the others, all of them certain they are the original. The room hated it. Bohr's circle dismissed it. Everett, wounded in a way he never recovered from, left academic physics almost entirely. He went into Cold War weapons research, calculating the optimal patterns for nuclear annihilation. He smoked constantly. He drank heavily. He grew distant and strange. And he carried to the end of his life one private conviction that he had taken directly from his own theory, and that he stated plainly to the people close to him. He believed that his theory meant he would never die. Not that his body was eternal. He knew it would fail. He believed something more specific and more chilling than that. He believed that he himself, from the inside, from the only point of view he would ever have, would never experience his own death. In 1982, Hugh Everett's heart stopped. He was 51. By his own instruction, his ashes were thrown out with the trash. And if the idea he could never let go of was right, then from the only perspective that ever mattered to him, his own, he did not experience that either. He is, in some branch of his own theory, still going. And I know how that sounds. It sounds like the self-soothing story of a brilliant, lonely man who needed his equations to promise him something. But I have to tell you that the idea did not die with him. It got sharper. It got formalized. It got dragged into a laboratory at MIT and turned into an experiment so disturbing that the physicist who built it spent the rest of his career begging people never, ever to perform it. And by the end of the next 40 minutes, you are going to understand exactly why you cannot experience your own death. Why that is not comforting in the slightest, and why the structure of the most successful theory in the history of science appears to be quietly telling each one of us that our own private stream of experience may not be allowed to have a last page. So let me start where the splitting starts, which is with a cat in a box. Because once you really see what the cat is, you cannot unsee what it implies about you. Erwin Schrödinger invented the cat in 1935, and people always get him backwards. He did not invent it to show how wonderful and mysterious quantum mechanics is. He invented it to show how absurd it was, to embarrass it. Here is the setup. You put a cat in a sealed box with a single radioactive atom and a vial of poison rigged to break if the atom decays. The atom is a quantum object, which means until it is measured, it is not decayed and not undecayed. It is both, smeared across both possibilities at once. And if the atom is in both states at once, then the poison is both released and not released. And the cat, sealed in there with it, is both dead and alive. Not unknown, not hidden behind the lid where we just cannot see yet. Genuinely both at the same time, the way the particle is genuinely in two places, until somebody opens the box and looks. But the cat is only a story. Schrödinger made it up. So let me give you the real version, the one physicists actually run. On a bench with real equipment. And have run for 100 years, because the real version is somehow worse than the cat. Take a single particle, an electron, and fire it at a barrier with two narrow slits cut in it, toward a screen on the far side. Fire them one at a time, so slowly that only a single electron is ever in flight at once, so there is no possible way for them to bump into one another. Common sense says each electron must go through one slit or the other, like a tiny bullet, and that over time you should see two bright bands on the screen, one behind each slit. That is not what happens. What builds up on the screen, electron by lonely electron, is a pattern of many bands, bright and dark and bright again. The unmistakable signature of a wave passing through both slits at once and interfering with itself. A single, indivisible electron going through two separate openings at the same time, and then meeting itself on the far side. Each electron does this. Alone, there is nothing else there for it to interfere with except the other versions of itself, taking the other path. And here is the part that ends the argument. Put a detector at the slits to catch the electron in the act, to see which one it really goes through, and the instant you do, the electron picks a side, the interference pattern dies, and you get the two boring bands common sense predicted. The particle is a smeared wave of every possibility when nobody is checking, and a single definite thing the moment anybody is. That is not a fable about a cat. That is a measured fact about the floor of reality, and every interpretation of quantum mechanics, Bohr's and Everett's and all the rest, is a desperate attempt to explain why the simple act of looking changes what is there. Bohr says, the looking causes a collapse, and one of the two outcomes becomes real, and the other was never anything. Everett says, nothing collapses, both outcomes are real, and you split into the version that saw one and the version that saw the other, and each of you walks away thinking the world had a single answer. Now feel where that puts you, because this is the part that does not stay safely inside the box. You are not standing outside the experiment. You are a quantum object too. Every atom in your brain, every electron crossing every synapse as you read this sentence, is playing exactly the same game the radioactive atom and the lonely electron are playing. Which means you are not a single observer watching the universe branch. You are inside the branching. You are being split, right now, billions of times a second, by the ordinary quantum churn of your own body and the world around it. There is not one of you reading this. There is a sheaf of you fanning outward continuously, and the one I am talking to, the one who feels singular and continuous and whole, is just one leaf in a fan you cannot perceive. And you should be asking right now an obvious and excellent question. If I am really splitting billions of times a second, if there are countless versions of me fanning out continuously, then why do I feel like one person? Why have I never once felt a split? Why does the world look so stubbornly, so convincingly singular? The answer has a name, and it is one of the most important and least famous ideas in all of modern physics. It is called decoherence, and it was worked out starting in 1970 by a German physicist named Heinz Dieter Zeh and sharpened over the following decades by others, most notably Wojciech Zurek. Decoherence says this: the branches are real, but the instant a quantum possibility gets tangled up with a large, warm, messy object, a measuring device, a brain, the surrounding air, the branches lose the ability to talk to one another. The interference, the thing you watched paint itself onto the double-slit screen, gets diluted across so many trillions of particles that it becomes, for all practical purposes, impossible ever to bring the branches back together. They stop interfering. They decohere, and from inside any one branch, the others become utterly invisible and untouchable, as if they had simply vanished, even though the mathematics insists they are all still there. This is why you never feel the split. The split is real, but it is also clean. By the time you become aware of a quantum outcome, your awareness has already entangled with it, already decohered, already sealed itself inside a single branch with no window onto the others. You do not experience the fork, because by the time experience happens at all, the fork has already closed silently behind you. Every version of you walks away down a corridor that no longer has any door back to the rest. That is not philosophy. That is calculated, tested physics, and it is the engine that makes a constantly shattering reality feel exactly like the one solid world you are sure you live in. In the 1970s, a physicist named Bryce DeWitt took Everett's exiled idea and gave it the name that stuck. He called it the many worlds interpretation, and rather than killing it, the name let it breathe. Because once you say it out loud, many worlds, you realize it is not adding anything to the equations. It is the equations, taken literally, with the fudge word collapse removed. Everett's version is, in a strict sense, the simplest reading of quantum mechanics there is. It is what you get when you stop making exceptions and just believe the math. That is why it refuses to die. That is why physicists like David Deutsch at Oxford, one of the founders of quantum computing, will tell you flatly that the other worlds are as real as this one, that a quantum computer works precisely because it borrows computational power from its own copies in neighboring branches. These are not mystics. These are some of the most rigorous people alive, and a great many of them think Everett was simply correct. And it is not only Deutsch. In recent years, the case has been made, loudly and carefully, by physicists like Sean Carroll, who argues in plain terms that many worlds is not the strange interpretation, but the conservative one. The only one that takes the equation at its word and adds nothing whatsoever to it, no mysterious collapse, no special magic role for observers, no extra hidden machinery. The other worlds, on this view, are not an assumption you bolt onto the theory. They are a prediction you have to do real work to avoid. Carroll's point, and Everett's before him, is that physicists invented collapse precisely because they could not stomach the worlds, not because the mathematics ever asked them to. Take away the squeamishness and the worlds are simply there, falling straight out of the same equation every working physicist already trusts to build every laser and every transistor on Earth. It is worth stopping, just for a breath, on what this idea cost the man who found it. Everett did not slink away quietly and bitter for no reason. In 1959, Wheeler arranged for him to travel to Copenhagen to present his work to Bohr himself, the high priest of the Orthodox view, in the hope that the old man might come around. It was a catastrophe. Bohr and his circle were politely, immovably dismissive. They did not engage with the mathematics so much as wave it off as a young man's philosophical confusion. Everett came home with the door shut in his face, and he never seriously published in the field again. The most important idea of his life had been judged and buried by the very people whose theory it completed. And he spent the rest of his years building targeting models for thermonuclear war, watching from the outside as, slowly, over decades, the worlds he had been laughed out of the room for began to look more and more like they might be real. He did not live to see how seriously he would eventually be taken. He only got the laughter, and the certainty, and the cigarettes, and the early. Ordinary heart attack that, if he was right, he is on the far side of, in some branch even now. This whole channel only exists because a certain kind of person hears all of that and leans in instead of backing away. Because the natural instinct, the healthy instinct, is to decide this is just philosophy, just an interpretation, a harmless way of talking that does not touch your actual life. And if that is where your instinct is taking you right now, this is your exit, and there is no shame in it. But if some part of you has already noticed that there is a knife hidden in here, that all this calm talk of branching is sharpening toward a point aimed directly at your own existence, then stay, because we are about to pick the knife up. The cat was the warm-up. Now we put you in the box. In 1997 and 1998, a physicist named Max Tegmark, then at the very start of a career that would make him one of the best-known cosmologists alive, wrote down the experiment that takes Everett's idea and turns it on the experimenter. He did not invent the seed of it, others had whispered at it before, but he formalized it, named it, and forced the physics community to look directly at it. He called it quantum suicide, and I am going to describe it to you not because anyone should ever go near it. Tegmark himself has said for decades that it is the single worst idea in physics, and that he would never do it, but because it is the cleanest way to feel what many worlds is actually claiming about death. Here is the machine, in the abstract. An abstract is the only place it will ever live. You build a device wired to a single quantum coin flip, a measurement of something like the spin of a particle, which quantum mechanics says comes up one way or the other, with even odds, and no possible way to predict which. You connect it so that one outcome does nothing at all, and the other outcome ends your life instantly, faster than thought, faster than any awareness could form. And then you trigger it, again and again and again. Now run both interpretations and watch them tear apart. In a single world universe, the kind Bohr believed in, the math is grim and simple. Each pull is a true coin flip. After one pull, you have a 1 in 2 chance of being alive. After 10 pulls, 1 in 1,000. After 50 pulls, the odds that you are still breathing are smaller than the odds of pointing at a single chosen atom out of all the atoms on Earth and getting it right by accident. In a single world, the quantum suicide machine is just an elaborate and nearly certain way to die, and after enough pulls you are, beyond any rational doubt, a body on the floor. An end. But now run Everett's universe and feel the floor tilt under you. In many worlds, the machine does not give you a chance of dying. Every single pull, the world splits cleanly in two. In one branch, the device fired and there is a corpse. In the other branch, it did nothing and you are alive and slightly bored. Both branches are completely real. So far, that is just the cat again. But here is the turn. Here is the whole thing. Here is why Tegmark could not stop thinking about it. Your conscious experience cannot continue in the branch where you are dead. There is nobody there to have it. A dead version of you experiences nothing, the way a rock experiences nothing. So your stream of awareness, your first-person thread, the very thing reading these words, is forced, by simple structural necessity, to continue only along the branch where you survived. You do not experience the 50-50. You experience surviving with certainty, because surviving is the only branch with anyone home in it. Pull the trigger again. The world splits again. Again, a dead you in one branch, a live you in the other. Again, your thread of experience can only run through the survivor. Pull it 100 times. Pull it 1,000. From the outside, from the point of view of anyone watching, you are dead within the first handful of pulls, lying on the floor, gone, mourned. But from the inside, from your own point of view, you sit there pulling the trigger of a machine that should have killed you 1,000 times over, and you simply keep not dying. Keep waking into the next branch where the coin fell your way, until you are forced toward a conclusion no one else in your world can ever share with you. You become the one person in your universe with direct, first-person proof that Everett was right. And you can never tell a living soul. Because in every world where you proved it, the people you would tell are at your funeral. That is the asymmetry, and it is the heart of everything. Death, in many worlds, is not one event. It splits into two completely different things, depending on which side of the eyes you are standing on. From the third person, from the outside, you die exactly the way everyone has always died. There is a moment, a last breath, a flat line, a grave with a date carved into it, people who loved you carrying the weight of your absence for the rest of their own lives. That death is real. It is not an illusion. It happens in branch after branch after branch. But from the first person, from inside your own experience, that death is something you can never reach. Because the moment of it is precisely the moment your thread is shunted onto whatever branch, however improbable, let you keep going. You are never present at your own ending. You cannot be. The ending is, by definition, the place where you are not. And here is the thought that should keep you up tonight, the one that strips away any comfort, that this is only a problem for a lunatic with a machine. You do not need to build the device. You are already inside a slower version of it, and you have been since the day you were born. Every moment of your life, quantum processes in your body and in the world are quietly rolling their dice. The overwhelming majority of outcomes leave you alive, which is exactly why your life does not feel like a coin flip. But the machine is always running, just at a gentler setting. There is always some branch, however thin, in which the next instant ends you, a vessel that bursts, a cell that turns, a fluke of physics, and always, beside it, the overwhelmingly more likely branch in which you simply continue. And your thread, as always, follows continuation. Tegmark's machine does nothing exotic at all. It only takes the slow, quiet, lifelong process of quantum branching and cranks the lethal odds up to 50-50, so that you can watch, in a few brutal minutes, the thing that is happening to you across your entire life in unbearable slow motion. You have been surviving a quantum lottery every second since birth. And you will go on surviving it, from the inside, no matter how the odds collapse against you, because the branches in which you stopped surviving are precisely the branches with no one left in them to notice. You might stop me right here, and if you are sharp you already have, and your objection is the best one in the whole field, so let me say it for you before you say it for yourself. You might say, this is a cheap trick with the word experience. Of course you do not experience your own death. Nobody does. Death is the absence of experience. A man who dies in his sleep does not experience it either. You have taken a tired old tautology, you cannot be there for your own non-existence, and you have dressed it up in quantum robes and tried to sell it back to me as a discovery. There is nothing here. There is just the obvious fact that experience cannot witness its own absence. And you are right that the tautology is real, but you are wrong that it is what I am claiming, and the difference between the two is the whole abyss. Listen carefully, because this is the part that took me a long time to feel and not merely to understand. In a single world, the world Bohr believed in, the tautology is harmless, almost cozy. It means your experience has a last moment, a final frame, and then nothing. And you are simply not around to mind the nothing. There is an end. The book closes. The fact that you cannot read past the last page does not mean the book has no last page. It has one. You just are not there to turn it. Many Worlds removes the last page. That is the claim. Not that you cannot witness the ending, but that, structurally, there is no ending for your thread to have. For every branch in which your experience stops, the theory guarantees a branch in which it continues, and your first-person stream is defined to follow continuation, because continuation is the only place a first-person stream can possibly be. So there is never a final frame. There is never a last moment of awareness, because every candidate for the last moment has a successor moment waiting for it in some surviving branch, however thin, however improbable, however broken. Your stream of consciousness, if Everett is right, is not a book that ends where you cannot follow. It is a book with no last page at all. It does not stop. It cannot stop. It can only thin out, fork forever, and follow itself into branches of ever greater improbability, world without end. And that, not the cozy tautology, is the thing that should make your skin go cold, because subjective immortality is not a gift. Read it slowly, and it curdles in your hands. You do not get to stay young and whole forever in some paradise branch. Your thread follows survival, and nothing else, and nothing more. It follows survival into the branch where the tumor turned out to be the one in a million harmless kind, and then, decades later, into the branch where the second one missed the artery by the width of a hair, and then into the branch where the heart stopped 6 feet from a machine that could restart it, and then into branches stranger and rarer and lonelier than that. As you age, the branches in which you keep breathing get fewer, and weirder, and worse, because ordinary good health runs out, and only freak accidents of survival are left. You are funneled, over the long run, toward the most improbable corners of reality, the ones where some absurd fluke kept the machine of you running long after it should have stopped for good. You watch everyone you have ever loved take the ordinary exit, the clean death you are quietly denied, the one with the last page in it. And you cannot follow them through that door, because for you, the door does not exist. Your thread bends around it every single time. Carry it all the way to the end, and it becomes almost unbearable. There is no natural stopping point, so the logic does not stop. It funnels you across spans of time that have no business applying to a human being toward becoming the impossibly old, impossibly alone, last flicker of awareness in a cooling, emptying universe, threading through the one in a trillion branches where some quantum accident keeps the lights on inside you a little longer, and a little longer, and a little longer, unable, no matter what becomes of the body, to find the exit that everyone else was handed for free. You do not die. In Everett's universe, from the inside, you never die. You just run out of good ways to live, and you keep living anyway. This is why Tegmark, who is neither a frightened man nor a credulous one, treats his own thought experiment as something close to cursed, because the quantum suicide machine is not really a way to end your life at all. From your own point of view, it is a machine that cannot kill you. It can only kill you for everyone else, scatter your corpse across very nearly every branch while sparing the single thread you happen to be riding, and leave the people who love you to bury 1,000 versions of you, while the version that is you sits there, baffled, alive, holding the trigger of a thing that should have ended 1,000 times. The horror of many worlds is not that you might die in the other branches. The horror is the symmetry of it. Both deaths are real. Both are completely true at the same time. And the cruelty is not that one of them is a lie. The cruelty is that you only ever get to ride the one that does not let you off. There is a deeper crack running underneath all of this, and honesty demands that I show it to you, because it is the exact place where even the physicists who believe every word so far begin to disagree with one another. When the world splits, and there are now two of you, which one is the real you? The instinct is to say one of them is you, and the other is just a copy. But that cannot be right, because at the instant of the split, they are identical. Atom for atom, memory for memory, with precisely equal claim to being the person who existed a moment before. There is no fact anywhere that makes one the original and the other the imitation. They are both you, the way two roads diverging out of a single road are both genuinely continuations of it. And this is what quietly dissolves the ground beneath the word death. Because if both branches are equally you, then in the quantum suicide machine there is no sense in which you survive rather than die. You do both. One continuation of you is a corpse, and one continuation of you is alive. and they are equally, fully you, and the only reason it feels like pure survival from the inside is that the dead continuation has no inside left from which to file its objection. The feeling of being a single self threading safely through the branches is not a fact about reality at all. It is a bias built into the very nature of experience, which can only ever be reported from the branches where experience happened to continue. The survivors always feel like the lucky ones. The survivors are the only ones who can feel anything whatsoever. You are not being protected by the universe. You are simply, necessarily, always the survivor, in the only world you will ever be able to call your own. So, let me bring it all the way back to you, sitting wherever you are sitting, reading this in what feels like the only world there is. You have, by now, lived through a certain number of years, and in those years, whether you have ever once thought about it this way or not, there have been moments that could have ended you. A car that came closer than you ever knew on a road you have long since forgotten. An illness that turned at the last possible moment. A fall that did not happen, a step not taken, 1,000 quantum near misses at the level of the cells and the atoms that you were never even aware of. From inside your single remembered life, you call all of that luck. You say you have been fortunate. But Everett offers another reading, and once you have heard it, you cannot fully unhear it. The reason your entire life, from the inside, looks like the life of someone who simply could not be killed is that there is no version of you anywhere who lived through the other branches. Those versions exist. They simply are not you, because you, the thread reading this exact sentence, are by absolute necessity the one strand that nothing has yet managed to cut. You could not possibly be reading this from any other strand. There is nobody left on the other strands to read it. Which means the most ordinary fact about your life, the bare fact that you are still here, that you have survived absolutely everything so far, might not be luck at all. It might be selection. You will always, every single day of your existence, find yourself in a world where you are still alive, no matter how improbable that world has had to become in order to keep you in it, because those are the only worlds with a you inside them to do the finding. Your whole life, from the first person, will look exactly like the life of a thing that cannot die. Right up until the moment when, for everyone who ever knew you, it ends. And you are the one person who will never be there to see it.